Blackburn is still in ICU up in the hospital in Brunswick. He has been showing some kind of slight, small improvements. We're praying that he continues in that direction. So just continue to remember him in your prayers. Lee Blackshear is starting to do better. I think it's kind of been unfairly stated that he had a reaction to the vaccine. I don't think that's accurate. The doctors determined that he's had a kidney infection, and once he started on antibiotics is when he started to feel better. So I think it just happened about the same time that he had the vaccine, and that's what everybody just kind of wanted to contribute to. So anyways, just want to mention that. Edna Cox is home now. Let's remember her in our prayers. Tommy and Jeanette Harris, also Julie Blackburn, I should mention, she also has been dealing with COVID as well, but just has not had it as bad as Wayne has had it. So yeah, and then Lee, of course, we mentioned him. Richard Harvey Sr. Diagnosed with prostate cancer. Amitha Alders, who's had some health issues recently, some surgeries, and had to have some blood transfusions. Let's remember her. As well as Peggy Kennedy's sister, who also contracted COVID and has not been doing well either with that. Jeff Brewer's aunt, I think she's still in the hospital. She passed away. Okay. All right, so let's remember that family in our prayers as well. Well, I have a prayer in just a moment. I'm going to introduce Scott. I think pretty much everybody here knows who Scott Shanahan is. Scott's been doing mission work for many, many years. In fact, we were supporting Scott here since before I actually came. And I've been here for almost 15 years now, so it's been quite a while. Scott's only 28, so he's been doing it first. But anyway, we're thrilled to have him. He's going to be talking about his new work now he's in Italy. And so I'm excited to hear about that today. I know you are too. Let's go ahead and begin with a prayer, and then we're going to turn it over to Scott. Let's pray. Our God and Father, we thank you for yet another day. Father, we thank you for the blessing of being able to gather here today in your name. Father, we thank you for the good works that are being done around the world. Father, there are many of them that we don't get to hear about and know about, but today, Father, we have that privilege to be able to hear about the work that's going on in Italy. We thank you for Scott and for his family, Father, for the work that they do. We're thankful that he's here with us today. We ask your blessings on him. Father, we continually pray for all those who are sick. We ask and pray your blessings. We continue to be upon each and every one of them. Father, bless us today and be with us, and we pray that all that we do will be in accordance to your will. We ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Perfect, thank you. Buongiorno tutti, che piacere di essere con voi stamattina. Good morning, everyone. What a pleasure it is to be with you this morning. I am so delighted to be here back at the Lake Forest congregation. It's been a while. Now, I do want to apologize for the fact that my family is not with me this morning. I'm here by myself. So after traveling all the way from Italy, about a month, not quite 2 months ago, we have driven over 4,000 miles, and on Friday we flew from Boston, Massachusetts, where we were visiting my father. Many of you might remember or know that he has been very sick. He's doing much better. He is actually now going to be able to live on his own. My younger sister, who's been living with him, is returning to her home. In fact, she returned yesterday, so thank you for your prayers. We flew back from Boston to Pensacola, where we had left our the van that we're borrowing, Friday, and then what we were going to have to do is get up Saturday, drive all the way here, and then after worship, drive all the way back. And I just thought that was too much for Violet, so we decided to leave her in Pensacola, and she didn't want to stay by herself, so Rebecca stayed with her. So I am sorry that they are not here, but they do miss you, and they send their love. Now, you be a little bit confused because Ryan said that I'm here to talk to you about the work in Italy. Now, you might remember that you supported us for 12 years when we lived in Micronesia on the island of Pohnpei. And the last time I was here, we were telling you about the fact that we were moving to Ireland. And we now live in Italy. We missed Ireland by a little bit. What happened was, you might know already, but for those of you who don't, we moved to Ireland, we set up our house, we got everything set up, and we arrived in Ireland on January 10th. On January 1st, this was in 2018, on January 1st, they had closed immigration to foreign religious workers in Ireland. And then they said, well, we're going to release new guidelines, and then you should be able to stay. Well, we didn't meet the new guidelines. They basically made it to where you cannot move to Ireland if you're not a European Union citizen to start a church or to work with a small church. You have to be with a large, established church that already has local Irish people working in it. So they told us we couldn't stay. And I said, my name is Scott Patrick Shanahan. How can I not stay in Ireland? And they said, well, you can't. So we came back to the States. We were looking at different things we could do, and we heard about. So we went to look at it. We had two questions. The first was, can we live in Italy? We don't want to repeat Ireland, where we made 4 international moves in the space of a year. And we're not doing that again. So can we live in Italy? And the second question was, are we needed? Because we don't want to go someplace we're not needed. So we went and we found out that we could live there. And then the second question, the answer for the second question we'll see as we continue with the presentation this morning. Well, I want to tell you a little bit about these rocks. Let's see. No, okay. All right. That's okay. Take your time. There we go. Okay. Let me tell you a little bit about the field. I'll go through this rather quickly. So as a land mass, Italy has been inhabited since antiquity. The first known settlement was the Greeks. There were already people there, but the Greeks settled in Italy about 800 years before Christ. Obviously, it was the home of the Roman Empire. You can see the Colosseum there. But the modern nation of Italy has only been established since 1861. So actually, Italy as a country today is younger than the United States. Very interesting fact. It has a population of about 60 million. Okay, so I don't remember the Florida population right now, but a pretty good number of people for the land mass. Now let's talk a little bit about Italians. Italians are very diverse. In fact, they are way more diverse than you might think. Okay, because Italy is slightly bigger than Florida, but in every region, now Italy is divided into regions, and those regions operate basically like states. And every region has its own dialect, Italian language, its own food that they have, like their specialty food. By the way, in America, we do not eat Italian food. We eat Italian-American food, and they will let you know that, okay? Every region has its own food, its own stereotypes. They're a very diverse population. In fact, as you go from north to south, you can almost see a difference in the people, the way they act, the way they present themselves. So in the north, in northern Italy, they're known for being very cold, not very welcoming to outsiders. And then as you get further south, they become more hospitable, more open, and friendlier. Okay, so basically the exact opposite of the United States, I would say. Maybe you disagree with that. It's actually interesting to me that the stereotypes are pretty much the same, that they get sort of warmer the further you get south. Dialects are different. They do speak a little bit differently. So, for example, in northern Italy, if you want to greet somebody, they would say buongiorno, sort of like that, very crisp and clear. And then in southern Italy, it's more like buongiorno, y'all. That's the difference. I'm just kidding about that. Just trying to wake everybody up this morning. But they are different. It's a very diverse place, much more diverse than you might expect. They are usually very patriotic. They love Italy. They love being Italian. They talk about it all the time. They're very passionate people. They are passionate about everything. They're passionate about their food, about their art, about education, about their lives. They argue passionately. When you are walking down the road in Italy, you can make a mistake. You make a simple mistake in something that you're not supposed to do. Maybe you walk the wrong side of the road or something like that, and they'll get very upset, and they'll get in your face, and they'll yell at you. And it can be very intimidating at first, but then you find out that's just the way they are. And in fact, one of our Italian tutors told us one of the things that what they expect when they get in your face and start yelling at you, they expect you to yell back, okay? And when you don't, they don't know how to deal with it. And so we figured out that if you really want to, mess with their minds, if they get upset with you, you just, oh, I'm so sorry. They'll get like, wait, I'm mad at you, and I want to tell you about it, but now I can't because you're being too nice. It's really, really interesting. They're usually very committed to family. They love their families. The stereotype of Italian mothers and their sons, if you're familiar with the show Everybody Loves Raymond, and you know how, if you ever watch that show, and Maria, I think her name is, the way she treats Raymond, that's 100% accurate to Italian mothers and their sons. They love their mothers, and the mothers love their sons. It's funny, you'll walk down the road in Italy, and you'll see like maybe this big, this happens all the time. You'll see like this big burly like construction worker or something, you know, he's walking down the road and he pulls out his cell phone and you go, "Ciao, mama." It's just the cutest thing, but they're constantly in touch with their mothers, but they're very, very committed to their family. Let's talk about religious life. 85% are Christian. Those are quotes there, just they're Italian quotes. Get my computer to do English quotes. So 85% Christians, of which 80% are Catholic, but only 30% of those are active. Okay, so most of the people are Catholics in name only. The way I grew up, I mean, I grew up Catholic, but we never hardly went to church. And there we go again. Okay, I'm good. Yep. Okay. There we go. All right. Only around 30% are active. I've lost my ability to click. Am I pointing it the wrong way? Or okay, there we go. Now, most denominations are represented, and there is a growing Muslim population. Now, that kind of scares people when you say there's a growing Muslim population. So this is as a result of immigration from North and Western Africa, and they are typically not radicalized, okay? So this isn't the same as people coming maybe from Pakistan or the Middle East. These are people that are just moving to Italy, just want to make money for their families and raise their families, okay? So there's no real terrorism threat in Italy. We've never heard of any even whispers of there being a threat for terrorism there, okay? But we just see that as an opportunity to reach out to them as well. The Lord's Church is made up in Italy of several small and dying congregations. So back in the 1940s, the 50s, and the 60s, Italy was really the gold standard for European missions, okay? I don't know if you're familiar with Earl Edwards. I know Ryan is. If you went to Freed-Hardeman, you know who Earl Edwards is. He did mission work over in Italy with several other guys, and they were just converting people left and right. They planted congregations all over the place. But in the last 30 years or so, all of those congregations have gone the wrong way. They've all stopped growing and started shrinking. The vast majority of members of the church in Italy are over 60. Now, there's nothing wrong with being over 60. I get closer to it every day, even though I'm only 28 years old. Thank you for that, Ryan. There's nothing wrong with being over 60. There is something wrong with all the congregations having only members over 60. Without any youth, without any young families, the congregations are going to close their doors. They're going to die. So when we went to Italy, remember we had those two questions. Can we live there and are we needed? Well, the answer to both questions is yes, because we have all these dying congregations. You'll see more of that in just a few minutes. There is one strong, active congregation in Sicily, in the city of Catania. But other than them, most of the congregations, between 30 and 40, we're not sure of the exact number, they're all falling apart and dying. Okay, so there is a desperate need there. For the most part, they are doctrinally sound with a few outliers, so you will find some congregations that call themselves the Churches of Christ, and they use the instrument or something like that. And then you do find the other extreme where there are a few anti-congregations. But for the most part, they're just as sound as the Lake Forest congregation. You would be comfortable worshiping in most of them. And they all want help, and they all have a desire to grow. Somebody one time asked us, well, why are you going to Italy? And the answer was because the congregations there asked us to, and I couldn't tell them no. They're very desperate to grow. They realize they need to grow, but they need help doing it. This is just a picture of, we did a nationwide Zoom meeting when we were in lockdown for COVID, and this is just some of the people that were there. You might not be able to see it from where you're sitting, but it says there were 73 participants. I think by the time I took this screenshot, it went up to 74. So that was, everybody in Italy was invited to, all Christians, all the members of the Lord's Church were invited to this meeting, and we only had 74 groups of people. Probably, I think there were probably less than 300 people total that participated in that. Now, obviously not every congregation participated, but that tells you the situation there. 60 million people, and if I had to guess, I would say there's probably far less than 2,000 members of the Lord's Church. You know, think about if you did even a Jacksonville-wide Zoom worship service, and you invited every congregation of the Church of Christ in Jacksonville, you would way outnumber the people that showed up in Italy, okay? So there is a desperate situation there. Let me tell you what our initial goals were when we first moved there. The first goal was to learn the language. The second goal was to find students. The third goal was to kind of get the lay of the land, what's going on with the Churches of Christ in Italy. And then the fourth was to start working with congregations, starting with Florence. That's where we moved to. Florence is in the north-central, kind of central-north maybe, I'm not sure how you would describe that section of Italy. You'll see it on a map in a little while. Well, how are we doing? So when it comes to learning the language, we made great progress. We can carry on most conversations. I preach regularly in Italian every month in a couple different congregations, a few different congregations. I lead 2 weekly Bible classes in the Italian language. Rebecca has had less opportunity to learn, but she presents lessons to ladies in the Italian language. Rebecca and I, this happened when we learned Pompeian as well. So I'm very good at remembering vocabulary and sentences and different things like that. But Rebecca is really way better than me at pronunciation. So if you could take the two of our brains and sort of mash them together, we'd be the perfect foreign language student. But unfortunately, we're one flesh but two brains. So for Rebecca, it's a little more of a struggle to remember the vocabulary, and for me, it's a little bit of a struggle for the pronunciation. Violet is the best. She goes to an Italian school, so she's immersed in it, and she can speak Italian perfectly. Maybe not quite perfectly, but she speaks it like an Italian. She frequently corrects us. So you might know this, but in Italian, they speak with their hands a lot. And when they do, those hand gestures usually mean something, okay? So, for example, if you want to say something's perfect, you say it's perfetto. It's perfetto, like that, okay? If you eat something and it's very delicious, you say buona, buona. That means that was delicious, okay? Well, they have one that they do kind of like this, where, you know, you're talking and they might want you to move a little bit faster, or maybe you're saying something, you just kind of go like this. Well, Rebecca was doing that, but she was kind of going like this. And Violet grabs her hand and goes, no, Mommy, you go like this, slow. You know, she loves correcting us. We don't love it, but she loves it. But she does do really, really well with that. We have a lot of room to grow, but we are heading towards fluency. Now, finding students. How have we done with that? In the past 2 years, we have worked with over 40 students. Right now, we have 20 active students, and they're all over Italy. So we do some face-to-face, like we are here with Chiara, and we do a lot online. Now, you might say, wow, that's a lot of students. I wouldn't have expected that. I didn't really expect it either. In fact, right now, I have more studies every week than I ever had when we were living in Pohnpei. And there's in any given week, I want to say it like that. And there's a number of reasons for that. One reason is I have a lot more time in Italy. I don't have to do any of the administrative stuff with the Florence congregation. I don't have to pay the light bills. I don't have to make sure the building's getting clean. There's other people who do that. I preach in Florence about once a month. I usually preach in Italy about 3 times a month, 3 or 4 times, depending on the month. But I have more time to dedicate to students. And then the second reason is the way we get our students. Okay, so the way we get students in Italy is by offering English through the Bible courses that are free. And most Italians are interested in learning English. Now, to take these classes, you have to want to learn English and the Bible, okay? Because we get a number of people who here we're English teachers and say, I want you to teach me the Bible. And we say, well, okay, well, then we're not going to teach you. You have to go on your way. But then we have folks like Chiara who tell us, I want to learn English and I want to learn the Bible, okay? And Chiara actually was my Italian tutor. And then she asked me to start teaching her through the Bible. And we have some great conversations. In fact, just before we came over here, I was talking to Kiara, and she said, I don't like that in my church I have to tell my sins to some man. She said, I have to go and tell this man my sins, and then he tells me to go and say Hail Marys. She said, I don't like that. I said, well, I didn't like that either when I was Catholic, and let's talk about what the Bible actually says. Now, Kiara's not become a Christian yet, but that really blew her mind that she saw that she didn't have to do that. And there's a lot of other conversations like that we have had. I'm going to go through some of the students that we've worked with or are working with. This is the first class I ever worked with. You want to remember Giuseppe. He is actually a Christian. I'll tell you more about him in just a little while. But he helped me set this class up. It was on Thursday nights before COVID. We would meet at the church building. There was actually another student who's not in that picture. Now, they're all older. They're all in their 70s and 80s. And when COVID hit, I said, well, we can do teaching. I can do this lessons on Zoom. And they said, no, we're not doing that. We'll just wait until we can meet again. We didn't know we'd be waiting this long. Hopefully, we can get that going in September. Here's a class I was teaching on Friday nights. Now, he is not Italian. That's Troy Spradlin, the minister at the Margaret Street congregation. That's Mike Scott, our deacon of missions. They were there visiting us, and there was another student who was sitting here. But I had these three ladies. Rebecca was teaching a children's class, and the mothers had dropped them off at the children's class. They said, well, we don't have anything to do. Can you teach us the Bible? Sure, why not? So we started studying, and that study had been going very well before COVID, again, hoping to get it started back up in the fall. This is Valentino, one of my favorite students. I love meeting with Valentino. We've become good friends. Valentino just retired. He was an art teacher, and he's really into philosophy. Now, Valentino does not believe in God, okay? So you might say, well, why do you study with him? Well, I study with him because he asks me. If he doesn't him the Bible every week, and his about the Bible, and they're not the questions you would think, like, an atheist maybe, well, here it's this. No, he's really interested in knowing, like, why I believe in the Bible and what does the Bible say about certain things. And we meet every week, and during this whole COVID thing, he asked me if I was worried about it. He said it's really bothering him, and he's really worried about it. And he said, are you worried about it? And I said, no, I'm really not. And he said, why not? I said a couple of reasons. Number one, I'm not really in a high-risk group. I'm fairly young. I'm not 28, but I'm fairly healthy. I said, but you know what, Valentino? If I got COVID, what would happen to me is I'd die and go to heaven. That's not a problem for me. And maybe it would be a problem for my family, but I'll be in heaven. That's them. No, I'm kidding about that. But he said, Scott, I really wish I had that. And would you pray for me? Now remember, he doesn't believe in God, but he just asked me to pray for him. There's a spark there. Okay, we need to keep working that. Okay, and before I left, we had this conversation. He told me, he said, you're very. He said this. I love this weekly meeting. He said I look forward to it. He said, in fact, you're like a stone to me. He meant just firm, a solid thing that he can count on every week. And he said, in fact, I could say that I have a stoned Bible class teacher. Valentino, don't say that to anybody else, okay? And then I explained what stoned means, and he's, okay, I won't say that anymore. Okay. So, but I love Valentino, and please be praying for him. Here's Rebecca teaching the children's class before we had to cancel it, and that was going really well. This is Stefano. Stefano, he is one of my students in the city of Vicenza, which I'll show you on the map in a few minutes. Now, I went up there just a few weeks ago to preach, and Stefano, who's one of those 30% of the Catholics that are active, he came and he heard me preach. And I spoke on baptism. And in our next Bible study on Zoom, he said, well, you said in your sermon that baptism is not sprinkling, that it's a burial. He said, but I was sprinkled, so do you think my baptism is invalid? And I said, well, Stefano, I'm not going to answer that. Let's let the Bible answer it. And so we looked at what the Bible says, and he said, okay, well, I think you think my baptism was invalid. And I said, well, I think you think what I think is correct. And I said, but it's not me saying that, Valentino. Not Valentino, Stefano. It's the Bible. And he said, well, what if I die, he said, and I go before God, and I say, and God's just going to say to me, well, you just did your best. You did what you were taught to do. I said, well, Stefano, the Bible answers that. And we went over to 2 Samuel chapter 7, where David decides he wants to build a house for the Lord. And Nathan the prophet, he's a prophet. And he says, go and do what is in your heart. The Lord is with you. Okay? Do what's in your heart. It's going to be okay. Well, then God comes to him that night and says, no, that's not okay. I've never told you I want you to build me a house, and you're not going to do it. I said, Stefano, God's never said he wanted you to be sprinkled, and no, I don't think he will accept that. Now, you have to make that decision for yourself. Now, he has a lot to think about, and he is thinking about it. He has not done it yet, but again, please just be praying for all of these students. This is the way we do most of our lessons now. We do some of them face-to-face. We do most of them online, and you can just see here we do English through the Bible. We read a verse, then we have a grammar lesson, and then we discuss the verse, and then we usually have about 15 minutes of conversation, which is almost always revolves around the Bible lesson. This is just another one of my students. His name's Mario, and he contacted us, and he said, I want to learn the Bible and English. See, he said it that way. Okay, and he asked me to actually, if I could send him an English Bible and an Italian Bible so he could read them together. And I just ordered him one on Amazon and had it sent to him, and he was so thankful for that. And he's a really good student, and we have a lot of hope for him. Just keep moving on. This is just a class I teach on Monday nights. They're younger students, so those two are both teenagers. And then Kiara, who's you can't see, she's 30 years old, I think. But the other two are just teenagers, but she doesn't mind that at all. Here's Rebecca teaching. Some of the ladies, Julia and Kiara, again, she was in that first picture, but now she studies with Julia, her friend. This is Rebecca and Martina. That's not her name. Marina. Now, Marina is actually Russian, and this blows my mind. She grew up in the USSR, because she's a little older than me, so she grew up during the time when the Berlin Wall was still standing. And now, that was an atheist communist society. And now she comes to my house every week and studies the Bible with Rebecca. That blows my mind. Go back. Okay. That is Alice, the Italian version of Alice. And you might think to yourself, well, she doesn't look Italian. She's not. She's actually Chinese. And her daughter is Violet's classmate. And she found out that we teach English through the Bible. And she said, well, can you teach me? And so Rebecca started having studies with her. And this just blows my mind. She was reading Mark chapter 1, and she came across a word that she couldn't pronounce. She said, I've never seen this word before. What is it? And the word was Jesus. She had never, ever seen the name Jesus in her life. Isn't that amazing? I've never studied with somebody that didn't have some amount of denominational baggage. She's a perfectly clean slate, and what an opportunity we have with her. Let's talk about some of the congregations we work with. This is the Florence Church of Christ. They have about 25 members, okay, 13 of which are American workers. So about 12 active. Now there's more members than that, but active Italian members, about 12, maybe 12 to 15, we might say, if we're being generous. The city of Florence has 350,000 people and about 12 to 15 Italian Christians. That's a horrific ratio, okay? Are we needed there? Yes, we are. There are 2 families with young children, but the majority of the congregation is over 60, okay? I preach there about once a month. These are some of the members, Giovanni and Carla, and they're very active, he preaches all the time, really good man. Now, right behind them is Carlo, and I want to tell you about Carlo because he sent us an email a few months ago saying, I became a Christian 2 years ago, but I've been to a church. He said, I just became a Christian by myself. Now, you and I know that's probably not correct, okay? He said, but I realize now I need to walk with somebody on my path to heaven. He said, will you walk with me? Well, what do you think we said to that? I mean, I emailed immediately, said, yes, absolutely. We met on Zoom, we had a Bible study, and now he's coming to worship every Sunday. Now, he's not been baptized yet, but we are working on that, okay? But that's just a really exciting prospect. I had another guy contact me just 2 weeks ago asking me just to study the Bible with him. He's not interested in English, he just wants to study the Bible. I'm very excited about that as well. So there's the congregation meeting on Zoom. You can see we're not very many for a city of 350,000. There's Giuseppe again, the guy who set up my study. He's 83 years old, but he's only been a Christian for 4 years. Remember I said that Italians are passionate? He's brought that passion with him to Christ. He has preached sermons, 83 years old, and he's preaching sermons. He leads prayers every week. Just a beautiful man. I just love him to death. There I am. That's what I look like when I preach in Florence. We also work with the Pistoia congregation. They are about 45 minutes north of Florence. I go there every last Sunday of the month, about 25 members, very few young children. Most of the members are older and married to non-Christians, and their children have not become Christians. And that's our problem, okay? So we need to turn that around and start growing the congregation. There's some of the young people that go there. And now Alice, she is one of my students, so her family are not members there, but she does come when I'm there. And then there is Ginevra and Carlota, and Violet loves going to this congregation because there's actually some little girls to play with, whereas usually there are not. We also work with the Rome congregation. They're the biggest congregation we work with, about 40 members, but not one child goes to that congregation. City of 4 million people, not one child. There I am preaching in Rome. This just blows my mind. Now, obviously, the congregation is different, but it blows my mind that I get to preach the gospel where Paul preached the gospel. I mean, that's just amazing to me. We also work with the Milan congregation. They have around 30 members. Mixed congregation with Italians and Filipinos. Very, very sound in the faith. They have a few young families. I think there's like 3 kids that go there. I do a Wednesday night Bible class for them. Tuesday night Bible class for them at Tuesdays at 9 p.m. And I just love this picture right here. This is why I've included it. This is Isabel. She's Filipina. Her husband is Italian. And you notice that they're not inside. They couldn't get their internet to work inside their house. So they got their phone and they went outside and sat through an hour-long class on the book of Acts. It was 35 degrees that night. And they sat there and listened to that whole class. I mean, talk about dedication. See, we have a lot to work with. We just need to get it going, okay? We also work with the Prato congregation. It's about 20 minutes away from Florence. Around 35 members. There's one young couple with no children, and then there are 2 young families. They're a good congregation. I do a Wednesday night Bible class with them, and you can just see that class. Now, this class is actually very difficult. Nobody in this congregation speaks English, so I have to teach in Italian, and sometimes I don't know the words, and there's nobody to help me. But also, the guy who set the class up for me to teach, that's Michele. Have you ever seen the movie Up? The cartoon movie Up, the Mr. Fredrickson? This guy is the Italian Mr. Fredrickson. I love him to death, but he's just like this grumpy old man. He told me when I was going to teach this class, he said, you're going to teach for 45 minutes, and then you're going to answer questions for 15 minutes. I said, okay, well, is there somebody who can help me translate? He said, no, but you can do it. Okay. It's very difficult. They do ask good questions, but sometimes it's hard to get the answers quite right. We also have worked with the Taranto congregation. They're very South Italy. So most of these congregations we go to like once a month or once a quarter. But Taranto, we can only get to them once a year. Around 35 members. There's one single young man. He's not married, but he's only in his probably late 20s. No children at all at this congregation. Over 100,000 people in the city and around 35 members of the Lord's Church. There's a dog that comes to the congregation, but no children, okay? If we could get children to come, that would be better. We also work with the Vicenza congregation. Now, the Vicenza is actually 2 congregations. One is Italian and one is African. They're actually Ghanaian, mostly from Ghana. People always act like Africa's one giant country. I was talking to this deacon of missions, and he told me, oh, yeah, we support a missionary in Africa. I said, where in Africa? He said, I don't know, just in Africa. That's not good. But they're mostly Ghanaians. The Italian congregation has about 25 members. The Ghanaian congregation has 40. They actually are a very good, strong, thriving congregation, both very sound in the faith. I don't have time to get into what this means, but it's basically the Lord's Prayer with these annotations that say, like, don't say Our Father if you don't act like a son. Don't say, lead us not into temptation if you continue to enter into temptation. Don't say, deliver us from evil if you don't take a position against evil. And it goes on and on like that. It's a really beautiful thing, and it shows where they stand. And it's a great tool because we're dealing mostly with Catholics, and that's the way Catholics pray, okay? That's me preaching there. This is Francesco. He was the song leader that Sunday. He's the one that arranged for me to preach there. And there's the Italian congregation, and there is the Ghanaian congregation. I don't know if you can see Rebecca and Violet, but they are in that picture. They kind of blend right in with the Ghanaians there. Now the Ghanaians, when I set up to preach for the Italian congregation, they said, well, the Ghanaians would like for you to preach for them as well. I said, okay, yeah, I'll do that. I'd love to do that. And it was great. There was such a good, strong congregation, and they're very, very sound in the faith. And they knew I was coming, but apparently nobody told them my name, because on the screen they had a list of people leading in worship, and you can see, so the Bible reading was Brother Urset Niame, and then the sermon was Brother American Preacher. So I got up and I said, hello, I am Brother American Preacher, and I'm happy to be here. I love this name. This so much reminds me of the islands, and that's really why we love being there that Sunday with them. But the Lord's Supper, Brother Fast Friend Saki. I don't know if anybody's expecting children, but the name Fast Friend works for a girl or a boy, okay? I just love it. Okay, the results. Now, before we get into the results, I've got just a few minutes. This is obviously Rebecca, and she is speaking here at a ladies' class. They have a ladies' class every other Monday, and Rebecca speaks at it frequently. She doesn't run the class, but she does speak at it frequently. And just before we left, a woman in the Pistoia congregation stopped me as I was leaving the building and said, I want you, when you go and talk to your supporters, I want you to tell them how much we love Rebecca, how much we appreciate Rebecca, how much of an encouragement it is for her to be here with us, teaching us. She knows that the language is a struggle for Rebecca, so when Rebecca goes online and teaches a lesson in Italian, it takes a lot of preparation, and they just appreciate that so much. And I want you to know, when I talk about our work, I mean all of our work. And when you talk about your missionaries, it's plural. Rebecca is just as much a missionary as I am. She works just as hard as I do. She takes great care of our family. She takes great care to make sure Violet is being taught. And she works very hard in her own personal Bible studies and in working with the ladies there. So we have accomplished all of our initial goals. I preach regularly in 7 congregations. I have students in 7 different cities. 6 have been baptized last year. Actually, it's 7 because one of the young ladies at Florence, a 14-year-old girl, her family attends, and she was baptized just a couple weeks ago. So there's been 7 baptized this past year. So things are going really well. Here's Florence, Pistoia, there's Milan up there, Vicenza is up there near Venice, Rome, obviously, right there, Taranto, so you see how far south they are. They're very hard to get to, but we can get there about once a year, maybe twice a year, and then Prato, which is right down the road from Florence. Well, let's just talk very quickly about our future goals. We have a church plant we want to do in Torino. 3 people were baptized there this past year. They worship with the Pistoia congregation through Zoom. There they are on the screen. Now, he was baptized. One day he came to the Pistoia congregation to be baptized. That's his wife, and this is their friend, and she was baptized the same day. So I actually thought they were married. I had it wrong. And then I found out he sent us an email a couple months later and said, I've been studying with my wife. Now get this, he was just baptized. He said, I've been studying with my wife. She wanted to be baptized, so we filled the bathtub up, and I baptized her myself. I hope that's okay. That's brilliant. It is very, very, very okay. So we plan to visit them. We haven't been able to because of COVID, the restrictions. We want to worship with those 3 and then pass out tracts in the city and hopefully have a campaign site there. In the future, there's Turin right up there in the northwest corner of Italy. We also want to offer an Italian through the Bible class. I'm almost done. I am going to go like 1 minute over. Now remember I said we have those Muslims that are coming in. That it's really not just Muslims, but Africans, a lot of Africans from North and Western Africa coming to Italy. And we also have a lot of immigrants from Asia and from China. They want to learn Italian. They're not interested in learning English. They need to learn Italian. Most of them speak English anyway, the ones from Africa anyway. But they want to learn Italian so they can work and raise their families. Well, you might know but maybe not, but usually people from the third world, those underdeveloped nations in Africa and Asia and in the Central and South America and in the islands, they're usually a little bit more accepting of spiritual things. So I want to get my Italian to the level where I can teach them Italian through the Bible and reach out to that group that nobody's reaching out to right now. Hopefully we can do that within the next year, and then we want to start a school of preaching. Now remember what I said, that in the 50s and 60s and 70s, the Lord's church was growing by leaps and bounds in Italy, and then it started to die off. Well, we need to get a Bible college going there again. We want to do it through online. You stay home, you stay in Milan, and you learn the Bible, and you do your work, do the Lord's work yourself. Okay, we have some needs. Please be praying for us. And then we also want to ask for encouragement. Now, what do I mean by that? I send a newsletter out every month. I send it out to like 700 people, and about 5 respond to it every month. Okay, and they're usually the same 5 or 6 who respond to it every month. If you get our newsletter, just send us a note and just tell us that you're praying for us. That's all you have to say. Hey, thanks for the newsletter. We're praying for you. Okay, that means so much to us. It lets us know that we're not alone. Okay, if you can do that. If you don't get our newsletter, sign up for it. You'll see my email address here in just a minute where you can do that. We do need monthly and one-time support. We are about $800 a month short of our monthly support, and we're about $2,000 short on one-time support, actually paying for this trip to do reporting and fundraising. Okay? Now, why are we so short on the monthly support? Well, it's because the U.S. dollar is not very valuable right now, and so every euro we spend is $1.25. Okay? So we lose a quarter on every euro we spend, which when you spend, for example, on rent, our rent is 1,200 euro a month, so that's like over $1,500 a month. Then our electric bill can be, $100. Well, 100 euros, so that's 125. So we're losing money on that. Now, we're not asking any one congregation or any one individual to make up that $800 a month. If you could, that would be fantastic. We don't expect that. But can you do a little bit of it? Can we get, 80 people to send us $10 a month? Well, then we'll have all that we need. Okay, and I know God will get us all that we need. But if you can help with that, please do. So here's some information. Now, that's our address. If you ever want to just send us a note, okay, you write to us there, okay? If you want to send support through a check, it goes there. Money does not get sent to us. Don't send it to us. Send it here. Just make sure it has Mission Italy on it. But now, just today, we've just started. We have online giving. You can do it at that website. You just click the Give button, and then it'll take you there. But you have to specify that it's for Mission Italy, okay, not general giving. And then there's 2 email addresses you can use to sign up for the newsletter. If you have a phone, you can just take it out and grab a picture of that, and you can get in touch with us. We appreciate you so much. Thank you for letting me come and present the work to you. If you have any questions, I'll be around between services and after worship this morning. Thank you so much. Sorry for going just a little bit over. I do appreciate your kind attention, though, and I look forward to worshiping God with you in a few moments.